walked outside to relax on your patio and get some fresh air? Or maybe headed into the forest for a good hike? But then bam! Out of nowhere, you spot the craziest looking insect you've ever seen. So you start jumping up and down, screaming, "I'm rich! I'm famous! I'm rich! I'm famous!" Because you think you've just discovered a new species? No? Yeah? Either way, I'm thinking if you stumbled upon one of the insects I'm going to be sharing with you today, or if you stumbled upon an insect that looked like this, you'd have a pretty similar reaction. Which, by the way, doesn't exist. But if I could design an insect of my own, that's what it would look like. Anywho, let's move on to see the top 5 craziest looking insects you've ever seen. First up, the lanternfly, alligator bug, or peanut bug. It depends on who you're talking to on what it's called. And before you ask, no, they don't taste anything like peanuts. At least I don't think they do. I've never actually eaten one before. You can find these herbivorous insects on the tree trunks in Central and South America. They're usually looking for some tasty sap to eat. And boy, oh boy, do they have a ton of myths going around about them. Like if a male and a female come close enough together at night, their large head will light up. Not true, but probably why some people call them a lanternfly. In Costa Rica, they believe that the peanut structure is full of poison, and that if they bite you, you'll die instantly. Again, not true. Their mouth works more like a straw, so they can't even bite you. And last but not least, in Bolivia, people deem their wings as dangerous. But in reality, these 3.5-inch insects are harmless. They just have a few deceiving looks that make many, and most importantly, their predators believe they're dangerous. I mean, if you look at them, you might think they're a mini reptile, like an alligator or a serpent. And who wants to mess with them? Not me. So if you ever see a peanut bug, don't be frightened. But if you see the next insect, the velvet ant, don't touch it. It's not your typical ant. In fact, it's not an ant at all. It's a wasp, and it can sting. At least the females can. The males can't. They have wings instead, enabling them to fly, so they usually go unnoticed. The females, however, have such a painful sting that they can kill a cow. Not really, but it feels like they could. You're usually going to see these insects that are about 3/4 of an inch scurrying around in the sandy soil in the southwest, looking for a bumblebee's nest. And when they find one, they dig through the soil, breaking through the walls of the nest, and then they lay their eggs. When the eggs hatch, the wasp larvae eats the bumblebee larvae, causing them to die. I know, not the nicest insect in the world, but let me tell you, they're mighty strong, with armor so hard, people have trouble piercing it with a steel pen. Yikes. Okay, let's move on to something a bit more peaceful, the hummingbird moth. An insect that you might have to take a double look at, since at first you may think it's a baby hummingbird. There are over 1,500 species of these moths, and they can be found throughout Europe, Africa, and North America. These moths may not actually be hummingbirds, but they have a lot in common. They both feed on the nectar of flowers by extending their long tongues into the flower in order to access the nectar, which helps pollinate the plants by transferring the pollen from stamen to pistil. And while feeding, they are both able to hover in place by moving their wings in a figure-8 form at a rapid pace, not ever having to land onto the branch or flower itself. This rapid movement of the wings produces a humming sound in both the bird and the moth. So, if they're so similar, why are they considered a different species? Well, there are several reasons. One, their size. The hummingbird moth has a wingspan of 2 to 3 inches, while the hummingbird's is double that. 2, hummingbird moths are more active at dawn and dusk hours, rather than during the day like the hummingbird. 3, hummingbirds don't have nearly as much coloring as birds do. They're usually found in grays and browns, which is the same color as baby hummingbirds, but not the adults. 4, the hummingbird moth doesn't have a beak. And 5, the hummingbird doesn't have an antenna. Still, all differences aside, it's pretty amazing how many similarities a bird and an insect can have in common. Next up, the orchid praying mantis. Ooh, look at that beautiful flower. Wait a minute, is that a flower? No, it's a praying mantis. Say what? Yep, this mantis has a white body with limbs that can range from pink to orange to yellow, which allows them to easily camouflage with the orchids throughout Southeast Asia. But why would they want the camo with flowers? To catch prey, of course. They just sit there, waiting for something to get close enough to snatch it up. And even though these insects aren't usually bigger than 5 inches, they have lightning speed reflexes and vision that allows them to detect light levels, depth perception, and judge the distance of the prey so accurately that they can catch things like frogs, lizards, and birds. But they usually stick to insects. Oh, and they seem to like to bite their prey's head off before continuing to scarf down the rest of its body. Yeah, this is yet another case to prove that looks can be deceiving. Alrighty, moving on to the last crazy looking insect of the day, the golden tortoise beetle. To me, these insects look like a mini golden turtle without a head, but they're not. They're not even gold all of the time. Their colors vary depending on the stage of their life and the moisture in their environment. So if you were to pick one up, they may lose their gold color since they're losing their hydration from your hand. These shiny gold-looking insects may make you think that you found gold at first. But if you like your plants, like morning glories, you'll quickly realize it's quite the opposite, since the larvae of this insect eat and chew holes into your plants. Say what?